Go.
And the use of minibars and in-house movies will not be covered by Bupa anymore. It's common sense not to take items out of the minibar. However, in the past, Bupa have been a bit more relaxed around this, but going forward, this will not be covered by Bupa. Where a preferred agreement exists, the room night charges will be charged back to the Bupa account by the hotel. All other charges must be paid for by the employee, either by corporate or personal credit card, and claimed back via the expense reimbursement process. So current policy, if you were staying at the Stanford and you wanted to have dinner at the Stanford, you could charge it back to your room and it would go on the master account, charged back to Bupa. New policy, we won't be able to do this. So there is pros and cons, because people that don't have corporate credit cards used to rely on this to be able to eat dinner. However, now they will need to pay for that themselves and then do a claim through the expense reimbursement process on ProMaster. So given those changes have occurred where you can't charge back food and dinner back to your room, the daily expenditure guidelines have increased. So it used to be $100 per day, but now Bupa employees will be reimbursed up to $120 per day and $100 for New Zealand travel for daily expenditure. So this is inclusive of all meals and beverages for all domestic travel. And then that gets reimbursed through the ProMaster expense.
That's not a bad figure. You shouldn't really be going over the 120.
No, no, that's right. The next probably big change is around taxi, corporate cars and public transportation. Employees should use the lowest cost and safest transportation choice when conducting company business. When safe and possible, employees should select public transportation, which also has a positive impact on the environment. And the use of corporate cars should be an exception. They are only, if they are used, then the cost must be justified. So I think this one here is going to probably create a lot of discussion with people. It's only where it's safe and if you feel comfortable in catching public transportation. If I was to travel from home to the airport on public transport, it would probably take me a good 2 hours to get to the airport, compared to driving to the airport and parking there. It'll cost an hour. It'll, you know, like it'll take me about an hour.
Yeah. But it's also about time, because our responsibility is making sure our people are safe.
Correct.
So if you were travelling at 6 o'clock in the morning, I think it's unreasonable to expect someone to catch public transport.
That is correct. And I think it'll be up to each individual department on how firm they are with this, or compared to, you know, if they're going to be a bit more relaxed. I know our director, Adam, he is, you know, more about our employees feeling safe, so he would rather give people a cab charge and then catch a taxi to and from the airport. In regards to the corporate cars, so that is basically only the MU executive can actually use corporate cars, so even Adam, our director, he isn't allowed to use corporate cars anymore.
Okay.
So how will all these changes affect our department? So the travel policy is a lot larger than what I've gone through. I've just gone through some key changes that will probably create some discussion. So our people need to be aware that the way they travel is changing. So people are going to have to be more organised in planning their travel and not leaving it to the last minute, and to ensure that we are within the guidelines of booking travel. Keeping in mind that reports are sent each month to our director outlining how much we are spending on flights, accommodation, and if we are outside the 7-day rule. So actually named and shamed. This report comes basically from the CEO down to our managing director and then through to our director. So it's really important that we you know, abide by the travel policy as much as possible. There are always going to be circumstances where you need to travel outside the 7-day rule, or we may need an exemption. As long as we are getting approval from our managing director and our director, we are okay. So when these reports come to us, we can actually say that an exemption has been approved by a managing director. We'll be expected to explain any breaches of the travel policy. Our managing director will ask for explanations, so it's really important that we do get those approvals for travel and exemptions. So I guess from this presentation, it's really important for you to cascade to your teams and to your travellers the key changes and note where things are no longer acceptable. So as much as people, there's pros and cons of the new travel policy, this is the new way forward, and we have to ensure that our travellers stick to it. So on that note, does anyone have any questions?
So the report that comes down, is the report very specific? Is it about travel that's been booked within the 7 days, and is it about you've spent more than the 120 allocated, or is it just a blanket report and it's just about the 7 day rule?
Yep.
Or the
So
30-day rule for international?
yeah, so it's quite an in-depth report. So it actually has how much we are spending collectively in health and benefits on travel. If we're booking, how much we're booking through Qantas, how many flights we're booking through Virgin, our preferred suppliers with accommodation, also how much we're spending on flights and accommodation as a total and individually, and anyone who books outside the 7 day rule are actually named, and if they booked 1 day before travel, it'll have that there and how much it cost.
Is Qantas still our preferred supplier for airline, or we no longer have that in place either?
We do. So the Qantas is actually currently being reviewed. So at the moment, Qantas is our preferred airline. However, when you are booking travel through FCM, if a Virgin flight is cheaper, we should be booking through Virgin.
Okay.
So the purpose of us having a contract with Qantas is that they should be cheaper, but they're not, and that's why we're renegotiating with Qantas. So if there is a Virgin flight cheaper, it would be...
To take it.
Yes.
Thank you, Danielle.
It's okay. So I will be distributing the full travel policy to you all, as well as the presentation today. If you could please cascade that to your teams, in particular your key travellers in your next meetings with your teams. And if they do have any questions, please put them in my direction. I'm more than happy to sit down with them one-on-one. I know it can be a lot of information to take in, but yes, this will be effective from the 1st of November.
Thank you, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for your
Danielle.
time.